Hi everyone, we are back and we have made it to Jacksonville. I know it has been a very long time since I have last filmed. Hi baby, you wanna come help me? I had full intentions of videoing our trip, our hospital stays, what we did, but our trip ended up just being really crazy. So I'm videoing now that we've made it here, we've settled in. We've actually been here now for at least 2 months. But I will be so much better at videoing, so I'm so sorry that I have not been doing anything. So right before our trip, I was actually getting a lot of texts and phone calls from some of my siblings and family members. And they were like, are you still moving? Are you sure about going? This time is crazy, what are you thinking? You know, that kind of thing. I think a lot of them were just worried about us getting stuck somewhere. They were telling us that some of the borders of some of the states were being closed and locked down and that they weren't allowing anyone to be traveling through there. Anyone really driving through or passing by, and they didn't want us pretty much getting stuck somewhere and having nowhere to go, which of course made us kind of a little skeptical and a little bit worried, but really it wasn't too bad. Basically nothing was really open. The fast food places were open through drive-through only, so you could not go inside, you could not use the restroom, you couldn't basically be near any of the workers. You couldn't go inside and eat. So there were places like Subway that were open where you could actually walk in, walk through the line, order your food, and then you had to leave. They had all of their chairs on top of their tables with like tape and signs saying please no dining, so you couldn't like sit down and eat anywhere. We did grab pizza at one place, and we had to basically bring the kids back into the car. So we would feed them all while they were sitting in the car, and then we would eat, and then we'd be on our way again. I don't know if I told you guys about our driving arrangement. So we got a budget truck that had all of our belongings in it. And then Dan was driving that full, and then I had our SUV, and I was driving that with all 3 kids. And then we would take stops about 3 hours or so, depending on if the kids needed to have a bathroom break. So we would try to stop at least every 3 hours or so, just so that they could eat, go to the bathroom, run around. We did make it to one park, but the playground equipment and stuff was like taped around, and you weren't even really allowed to play on the equipment. But they had like picnic tables and stuff that were open, so we did end up having like a Burger King lunch or something like on one of the picnic tables one day. So eating was kind of like hard. So the hotels were open, they did not allow any walk-ins. So you did have to have a reservation to even get a room. And then they only filled up to half capacity, so they didn't even fill up their entire hotels. So a lot of the hotels that we did book at, we wanted to make sure that they would have, like a breakfast. But with the virus, they didn't have their full-on like breakfast buffet that they normally would do. They were just kind of like a grab-and-go breakfast. So in the morning, I would go down the elevator, and they would have bags already like ready to go. And you would just grab however many bags you needed, and then you'd go back to your room. So in these bags, they would just have things like muffins and granola bars, yogurt, and then like a bottle of water. I mean, they were not very big. They didn't have very much. And some of them would have like a fresh fruit, like an apple or a banana. Some of them even had like cereal. So they would have like a cereal, and then it would come with like a little carton of milk, and then you would just have that. So you'd have to just pick it up, go back to your room, eat it, and then that would be your breakfast, which was at least good that we at least still had a breakfast. It just wasn't very much. And then of course everything was closed. So their workout rooms were closed, their pools were closed. And it kind of made us a little sad because we were kind of excited to go into the pools. We brought our swimming suits just in case, but they were all close it. If we needed to do any kind of like a bathroom break, it always had to be pretty much be like a gas station. It couldn't ever be like a restaurant or even fast food like I was saying before. Many times I almost wanted to like just pull over the side of the road and like, you know, like one of the kids. So what also made our trip kind of nice is that my SUV, which is a Dodge Journey, it has a Bluetooth capability, so it's synced to my iPhone, and then I have like a touch screen on the side of my steering wheel, and so it has things like my phone on there, and it has all my like phone book and everything is also right there on that touch screen. So if I needed to make a phone call, I could easily do that without having to, you know, grab my phone and dangerously play around with my phone or try and find a phone. You know, it's very dangerous, especially on these highways. So it's always been nice to just be able to quickly dial down if I needed to, and then vice versa. Now, an incoming call from him, I could easily just push the answer button, because it would come up on my screen saying who was calling, and then you can say, you know, answer or decline. And so I just push answer, and then I could just talk with both hands, you know, obviously on the steering wheel. I could still talk to him that way, which was very nice. And the kids could say, "Hi, Daddy, we miss you," you know. So anyway, that was just kind of fun. The kids actually did like so much better than I could have ever imagined. Right before our trip, we ordered a couple of like they're like kid activity holders. One of them I got for Logan, and he's 7, and it's one that attached to the seat in front of him, and it just kind of hung down. I'll try and put the link of this below so that you guys can check that out. And then it has like a clear kind of like window on it that you can slide his iPad in there, and then that way he can do whatever he wanted to do there. If he wanted to do some homework, reading, if he wanted to watch something that we've downloaded, he could do that. And then for Charlie, we got her kind of it was more like a tray that sat on her lap, and it was like a dry erase board. And then I just bought her a couple like extra markers, and she could draw on the board if she wanted to. It also had like a stand-up holder for like her iPad so that she could watch as well as draw or whatever she wanted to, and it would hold it still. And then on each side of that tray was just kind of like mesh like holders for things. So we put things like, you know, stickers, markers. It even had like a little zip pouch that I could put in like coloring books in there as well. So they had like all these different kind of like coloring things that they could do. But really, I was imagining them to all be like horrible, like at least every hour, just crying or screaming or complaining, or, you know. But they actually did so good. And Jet, and who was 15 months at the time when we moved, I thought he was going to like be crying and crying and crying, but like he would go, you know, like there'd be 2 hours of like silence from him, and then I would ask Logan, who was sitting behind him, because I have 3 rows of seats, and I would have him kind of look up above him, you know, can you check on him, make sure he's okay? And he'd tell me, you know, he's fine, he's just looking out the window. And I was like, he's just looking out the window? You know, like he's never just done that. You know, because a lot of the times I was just thinking like, is he just sleeping and sleeping? But I guess he was just having a good time looking out the window. So before our trip, we did end up, I did make us each like a big goodie bag. So each one had their own like a big bag, and they all had their name on it. And then I would just distribute different snacks for each person. So I had things like dried mango, some like nuts like almonds and things, jerky, granola bars, we had like that Chex Mix, goldfish, some popcorn. You know, it was just like little snacks like that stayed good for a long time, that they could just keep in the car. And they all have their own individual like little like a Ziploc baggie for each item, so that way if they're done with something, they could easily close it and it wouldn't spill everywhere. Of course, when we got here, it was still a very messy car, and it took us like weeks to get it all cleaned. And the kids liked that. They liked being able to have their own snacks. Jet was a little bit harder to give snacks with. He didn't have his own goodie bag per se, he just shared with me. So there was like a seat in between Charlie and Jet that we just kept empty. Like they had their things like their toys or blankets or whatever that would probably sit there. But there wasn't enough room for Logan really to sit there because they're both in convertible car seats. And he would just be squished that entire trip. So that's why we put him on the third row behind Jet. So giving him snacks would have to come from me. But if Jet really did need like a snack, I would just kind of like lean back in my chair and I would be able to kind of still reach him, and he would see my hand and he would be able to grab the snacks out of my hand while we were driving. Because there were definitely times when he was hungry and he really did need something. And he would just say, "Mama, Mama." And so I would give him a little snack that way because Charlie could not reach him because there was too big of a gap in between their seats. Which would have been nice if they were a little bit closer together, if we did do it that way. And then Dan, of course, had his own as well that he just brought in the truck, so his just stayed in the truck with him. So right before we left, we calculated that each day we needed to drive at least 9.5 hours in order to get there by like 3 days. Again, we were moving from Kanab, Utah to Jacksonville, Florida. And so that was like our plan, was to at least make 9.5 hours. So by the time we made it to the hotel room, I think it was even after like 8 o'clock. So it was pretty like late for us by the time we had our stops and lunch and everything. I think that was like by the time that we checked in. So it was pretty late for us. The kids' bedtime is actually like 8 o'clock. And then there's like the time changes too as we gradually moved more east. But I mean, we got there and then either me or Dan would run out and we'd grab dinner, like a takeout, and then we'd bring it back. And then we'd hurry and eat, and then we kind of all go to bed at the same time. We had Jet's pack and play, and he actually did extremely good with that too. He really surprised us like the whole trip. We did our normal like routine with him before bed. Hi. And then he just like went right down. Yes. Daddy boy. You wanna come help Mama? You wanna come help me? He's gonna come push down my camera. That's what he's gonna do. Come here, Lappy. Come here. You wanna come say hi? There's Jetty. So here's little Jet. He decided to come in and join us. But yeah, he did like so good on the trip. The nights, like he actually slept right through the night. He didn't wake up screaming. And again, he was about 15 months during the trip. Huh? Can you say hi to everybody? Can you say hi?
Okay, I'll try and go do my unboxing video.
But he did so good, and he just like laid right down. He was just right by our bed, and we'd lay him down, and he would roll over and go to sleep. Dada! Dada! Where'd Dada go? Where'd Dada go? Where'd Daddy go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? And then we had 2 queen beds. And then Logan and Charlie just both slept in one, and then me and Dan had the other one. And we all just basically went to bed at the same time because we were just like exhausted. And then we decided like the next day we need to not push it that long because it was a really tough trip that first day. And so the next day I think we made it 7 hours to the next hotel. Yes. But I mean, everything went really well and really smoothly with all the hotels. Anna, you are done. You are done. Say hi, guys. Say thanks for watching. We made it here. I mean, it took us longer to get here than we wanted it to, but don't touch, okay? And I'm glad that we kind of took our time and got here. The time that it did. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to kind of let you guys know how the trip went. If you need any other like help as far as traveling with children, things that might help, those are just some kind of like little ideas. You're free to message me anytime. If you have any questions about that, or you're worried about a trip But yeah, I mean, surprisingly, our trip went really well, especially with 3 little kids. 15 months, 3, and then 7. And being the only parent in the car, I really don't think it could have gone any better. And I feel like so lucky that we made it here, even as quickly as we did. Thanks so much, you guys, for watching. If you want any more updates, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Push the bell for notifications, and you will be updated each time I post a video. See y'all later. Bye!